yeah, the other day I took some time out, just enjoyed the fresh air a little bit. Sunlight, vitamin D, if you've been stuck indoors for a while and where you live lets you, make sure you do that. Okay, before we start, make sure you subscribe to this channel and give my Instagram a follow if you haven't already. This video is going to take a very different tone to what I originally envisioned that I want to do with this channel, but I think it's an important conversation that we have. At least I feel like I've needed to have this conversation. Okay, hey, it's me again. I know you just saw me. I'm editing this video right now, and I feel like there's just a few things I need to make very clear. First thing, I did write a script for this video. As you can tell, sometimes my eyes when looking into the camera. Something that's important, I feel like I really need to pen down what I thought rather than just go with my train of thought. So there's that. The second thing is actually, despite what I've been saying in there, and this is not to overwrite what I've said, racists should be punished and there should be consequences for, let's say, their stupidity. But I also think there is something important we need to talk about as to how we go about the same punishment. Yeah, and I hope this video explains it. Anyway, back to the video. It's taken me a long time to formulate the right words. It's taken me a long time to formulate my thoughts into the right words, but I'm going to try. This short video will never do justice to decades of research into racial equality and injustices that people have done, that scholars have been putting their hard work into, but I think we are at a point where I feel like I have a voice that I could use to contribute to part of the conversation. On the 16th of March in Atlanta, Georgia, a lone shooter walked into a massage parlor, a spa, and shot 8 people. The majority of the victims were of Asian descent, and even though authorities are still yet to designate the terrorist attack as a hate crime, given recent increases in tension against people of East Asian descent, the fact that the Atlanta's ethnic makeup is less than 5% Asian in a 2014 census, and nearly 75% of the victims were Asians in that shooting, it's not hard to put 2 and 2 together. But let's rewind a little bit, because I think in order for us to get around all this, we need to understand why racism exists. I'm not going to claim to be an anthropologist, a neuroscientist, or behavioral psychologist with anything that I'm about to talk about. So if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comment section below. But let's get started. At the core of our brain is the amygdala. Amygdala is AMYGDALA. It's a part of your brain. It's the core part of your brain that controls most of our most primal instincts. You may have heard of the fight or flight. You may have heard of the fight or flight response. It is the part of our brain that also creates a us or them mentality. To survive, as a species, we either fight or flight, which is to run away. And to give us a better opportunity at fighting or flighting, our most primal instincts is to form social groups. Groups of people that we associate with as us or them. Eventually we became, as civilization sort of grew and evolved, we became tribes and villages to hordes to, countries and states and different forms of identity. We still see it in today's society. Just think about sports, right? I'm a Man United supporter. Think about the relationship between Man United supporters and Liverpool supporters. People from Manchester and people from Liverpool. There is an intensity of us versus them mentality there. And it affects even people not from Manchester and Liverpool. My friends growing up supporting Liverpool were in talk about football. No, because there's just too much bad blood. And for a long time, one of that grouping was race-based. As human behavior evolved, many of us are able to see past the need to sort of see our strength in race. Our brains are able to rationalize beyond a us and them mentality. Beyond this us and them mentality based on race. But for many others, there is an inability to see past that. Because for many people, it's way easier to conform to what they think they know, their ideas that they grew up around, racial stereotypes, in more extreme cases, eugenics. It's much easier to do that than to challenge themselves or engage themselves in conversations that will challenge them on these ideas. I'll fully admit to my privilege when it comes to being a victim of racism. My personal experience nowhere anywhere near close to what my black brothers and sisters have endured throughout their lives on a daily basis and on a historical basis. But there has been a noticeable difference for me since the pandemic began. Definitely there have been more stares. You know that when you see people looking at you, and something nasty is going through their heads. They're definitely more taunting on the streets. There have been a few times where I'm walking on the streets with white friends. We've both got masks on. Both of us noticed that I was the only one being looked at with hostility. People are definitely bolder in saying their unfiltered thoughts. I've had people definitely given me race-based hate, not hate speech, but I suppose it is hate speech, using that at me. People definitely shouted at me because of the virus, saying that it was my fault. One time, I was told by someone who was being unreasonable that I was giving them the Asian stare, whatever that means. All this, all this hatred, COVID-inspired hatred, was perpetuated by both the former US president and the current Prime Minister in the UK's language in the early stage of the pandemic. Rather than to take early action to prevent the virus from reaching our shores, we sat here in the West and did nothing. We pointed fingers, we blamed the WHO, and we blamed China. While I do have some opinion on that matter, that is, that opinion's for discussion on another time. This language of blame created a culture of, it's not our fault, it's their fault. It's their fault that we're having to go through all this. It's us and them all over again. So going back to the 16th of March this year, my reaction to the attacks, it wasn't shock. I wasn't caught up by surprise. It was just sorrow and sadness. Sadness that people once again had to die simply because of their skin colour. Sadness that someone felt that it was okay going to shoot other people. Sadness that someone felt it was okay to go and kill someone simply because they were having a bad day. Sad that a man's privilege made them think that this act of violence was an acceptable thing to do, knowing full well that no bodily harm will ever come to them. So what now, Tim? What's the bright idea? How do we eradicate racism from the face of the earth? Look, I don't think we'll ever be able to find a perfect answer. I definitely won't. Human beings are fascinated in the way that two people from the same background with the same upbringing can react completely differently to the same thing. So I can only speak for myself based on my own experience, my own pain and anguish, my very own understanding of the historical burden ethnically Chinese people had to carry, at least in the West. And again, I'm fully aware that I'm speaking from a position of privilege, more so than some others. So remember us and them, the idea of us and them. The goal, I don't think, is to destroy them, but rather to turn them into us. This means that we have to do the hard work, the unfair work, to engage these people in open conversation to help them with their own long and difficult journey away from racism. It sucks, I know. It is definitely unfair. But a racist is not going to engage themselves in conversation about racial equality or white privilege. A racist is not going to educate themselves in the histories of different people. I think one of the reasons racism, along with other forms of discrimination, has been allowed to thrive is because those of us fighting against racism are content with just shoving them aside, with just putting them in a closet and saying that we've done the work. That we are happy simply by removing them from mainstream society, which is important. I'm not discounting the fact that that is an important part of what we do. And don't get me wrong, racists should be punished. that actions require consequences. And there will be people that are so far gone to the other side that there's nothing on earth that you can do to bring them back to sanity. But if the only thing we're doing is removing them from mainstream media, from mainstream society, and because they don't seem to have to face the consequences anyway because privilege, then what we're doing is simply helping them build their own community, their own echo chambers, where they continue to reinforce their ideas, their own ideas, where they continue building up each other in this false narrative that racism is good. And one day, hate crime, because of that of their own community that is reinforcing their own ideas, one day hate crime will become so common that it will just be treated as a fact of life. So if we are trying to eradicate this disease that is racism in our world, why are we helping them build their own community? Well, we have to reach out, even if it's unfair. Am I being too naive? Should I be more aggressive? Am I looking at this too simplistically? Let me know in the comment section below. And I'm sorry if this one's been a bit of a downer, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll see you in the next one.